Hey, welcome back to my studio. Today I want to show you how to create this butterfly-inspired purple balloon backdrop, as well as this freestanding butterfly cutout made from 2 pieces of foam board. Let's jump right into making the balloon garland. I'm using 4 shades of purple balloons, the first being purple chrome metallic, spring lilac, pastel lilac, as well as a custom really light purple I've made from a purple violet balloon stuffed inside of a white balloon. I'll be inflating 16 of these 11-inch balloons in each color using my electric balloon inflator. Now I'm going to inflate these 2 at a time using 2 different colors as I inflate these. So I'm going to inflate them until they're almost full and then let air out of some of them so they're anywhere between 7 and 10 inches in diameter, and that will give us a nice organic look. I'm then going to tie them together in a pair by wrapping the nozzle around twice and tying them together in a simple knot. In addition to these all 11-inch balloon pairs, I'm also going to create 12 pairs using an 11-inch balloon as well as a 16-inch balloon. And I'll inflate both of those at the same time, making sure the 16-inch balloon is always on the trigger side of my balloon inflator. That way, once the 11-inch balloon is full, I can keep inflating the larger balloon until it reaches its full size. I'm then going to press down on the 16-inch balloon so it's nice and round before tying it into a pair. Once all of the 11 and 16-inch balloons are tied into pairs, we then need to create quads out of all of these balloons. To make a quad, take 2 pairs and overlap them so that the nozzles are all touching right in the center, and then twist 1 balloon from each pair around each other, and that will lock them together into a quad. I'll repeat this step so I have a bunch of these all 11-inch quads in a mix of colors and sizes before doing the same thing with my 16-inch balloon pairs. Combining 1 pair with a 16-inch balloon and 1 all 11-inch balloon pair will give me a quad with a singular 16-inch balloon in them. All of those balloons turned into quads, we now need to make some accents using some 5 and 7-inch balloons, and I'll be inflating all of these using my hand pump. The 5-inch balloons will be inflated to 4 pumps of air or 4.5 inches in diameter, and I'll be tying these 2 at a time just like we did the larger balloons. So once I've inflated the first one, I'll hold it under my finger while I inflate the second one before tying them together into a pair. Now I'm going to inflate 4 of these that are all the same color and tie them into pairs, and then bring those 2 pairs together into a quad. I'll repeat this step with all of my 5-inch balloons in the 3 different colors I've got, the spring lilac, pastel lilac, and our double stuffed purple balloons. Now the chrome purple balloons are actually 7 inches in diameter instead of 5 inches, so I'm going to inflate these with 10 pumps of air or to 6 inches in diameter before tying them into quads just like we did all the other balloons. To make it really easy to tie these accents into our balloon garland, I'm going to take 2 quads and tie them together using an empty 260 balloon I've cut in half, and by doing this we'll create mini clusters that are super easy to add in later. So take the end of your 260 and pinch it right against the nozzles of one of your quads, stretch it tight, and wrap a figure 8 pattern around 2 of the balloons in that quad, and that will lock it to the piece. Now you can also tie the end of the 260 to one of the nozzles in that quad, and that would work just as well. With the 2 quads secured together, we now have a cluster, and I created 9 of these little clusters, 3 in the different color schemes, so 3 with the lilac, 3 with the chrome purple, and 3 with the custom purple that I made. But before we can assemble the backdrop, we first need to make our statement butterfly cutout. So I'm using 2 pieces of 20 by 30 foam core, 1 for each of the wings. And to make cutting the wings out super easy, I've created this printable template, which is available in the description box below in both this 20 by 30 inch size, as well as a larger 40 inch tall size. So I'm going to lay this flat on top of one of my pieces of foam core, and I've already loosely cut around the outside outline of the butterfly wing. And to save us a little bit of cutting, I've aligned the straight edges of the wing with the straight edges of the side and bottom of our pieces of foam core. While I hold that template in place, I'm going to secure it down with tape all along the edge of the template so it doesn't shimmy around. Now because we've secured the template only on the outside edges, we want to cut out all of the interior pieces first. And I'll be using an X-Acto knife with a brand new blade to cut out my foam core. To get a really nice clean cut through the foam core, I like to take every cut in 2 passes. The first pass is only cutting about halfway through the foam board, and I'm focusing on following the template lines accurately and keeping the knife at a nice 90-degree angle. I'll then repeat that cut, pressing a little harder so I can cut through the bottom paper layer of the foam board, and this gives me a really nice clean cut. Sometimes if you press too hard and go too fast through a piece of foam board, potentially with a dull blade, you can sometimes rumple up that foam core, giving the cut a really jagged look. Once I complete that second cut, I then gently press on the foam board piece to see if it comes loose. Now if I've cut everything correctly, those should pop right out, but if as you press gently it's not coming loose, go over the lines one more time with your knife and then see if it'll come loose of the foam board. Now once I've got all the interior pieces of the butterfly cut out, I'm then going to go around the outside edge, cutting it all free, and then I can reuse the template to cut a second wing, so I've got two identical wings that look just like this. If you wanted to change the color of your butterfly wings, now's the time to spray paint the front and back and all of the edges if you want to do that. For me, I'm going to leave mine the natural white of the foam board so we can move on to the next step, which is creating the hinge between our two wings so it can stand up independently. To create that hinge, I'm using some clear packaging tape. I'm going to apply that along the long seam of the butterfly where the butterfly's body would normally be. Now the important thing here is to make sure the bottom edges of the butterfly are square to each other, so this will stand up nice and straight. Once you've got the bottom edges aligned and the two center parts of the wings are touching, then take a long piece of clear packaging tape and align it right across that center seam, rubbing it so it's nice and smooth. It'll basically disappear on the foam board, but it'll give us a great sturdy hinge for our butterfly to stand up. I've made my butterfly from foam board because it's easy to work with and easily accessible, but you could absolutely make this from MDF and metal hinges for a sturdier piece. Now that all the elements are prepped, we can finally start assembling our backdrop, and I'm using this 7.5-foot circle backdrop stand to build it on. Starting at the bottom on the right hand side, I'm going to add my first balloon quad to the frame. So I'm going to take my quad and slip it around the frame so that the frame is touching the nozzles of my quad, and then the two balloons that are on either side of that frame, I'm going to twist them around each other, and that will lock the balloons onto the frame so they won't pop off later. I'm going to scrunch this down so it's right against the foot and then grab my next balloon quad, and this one has a 16-inch balloon in it. So I'm going to take this one, and just like the first, I'm going to slip it over the frame and then twist the two balloons with the frame in between them around each other, securing them in place. Now as I continue to add quads, I always want to make sure I snug them together, paying close attention to the color and size placements. The quad that you're currently working on should always be sitting between two balloons below it, so you don't have large gaps between your balloons. Now I'm going to continue adding quads all the way up the right side of my frame, alternating between all 11-inch balloons and my 16-inch balloon quads. And I'm going to stop about 2 to 3 feet from the pinnacle of my circle arch, so I have a nice loose arch on the right hand side. I'm going to offset that by creating a large overflowing section on the bottom left of my circle. Now I want these to have lots of 16-inch balloons in them, so I'm going to grab a 16-inch quad and secure it just like we did the one on the right hand side. The place where I want to add my next quad is too close to the ground to get the balloons underneath, so I'm going to take an empty 260 balloon and tie it directly to the frame, and then use the tails of that 260 to secure my quad on top of the frame. So nestle that new quad right next to the old one, stretch the tail of that 260 nice and tight, and wrap it in a figure eight pattern around a couple of the balloons in the current quad and the one to the left so that they stay nice and snug together. Now if you want to add quads on top of your balloons that aren't right next to the frame, take a 260, tie it to the new quad, and do the exact same thing by pulling the tail of that 260 and wrapping it in a figure eight around some of the balloons that are already secured to the frame. And this will allow you to really build out the size and volume of our balloon garland without those balloons needing to be directly tied to the frame. So once I've got all of my 11 and 16-inch balloons tied in place and I'm happy with their overall placement, we can start adding in our accent tiny balloons. So anywhere in your garland where maybe there's a gap and you can see the frame, or you just need a little bit more color, that's where we can insert our mini clusters. So I'm going to stretch the 260 that's between our tiny balloons and tuck it behind one or two balloons of the main body of our balloon garland, making sure that 260 is hidden from sight, and then I can rotate the tiny balloons around until I like where they're sitting. I prefer to add in my tiny balloons in this way because I can move them around until I'm happy with their placement, whereas if you use the glue dots and stick them directly to another balloon, you're kind of committed once you've already attached the two of them. I'll continue to add mini clusters, making sure I take a step back occasionally to look at the overall design before placing my next balloon. Once I'm satisfied with the location of all the balloons, we can then add our final detail, which is these metallic gold butterflies. I purchased a pack of these off Amazon, and I'll have the one that I bought linked in the description box below. But in that pack came butterflies of multiple designs and sizes, and each butterfly has a perforation between the body and the wing, so you can bend the wings backwards, and it gives them this three-dimensional touch before we add them to the balloons. Now to stick these to the balloon, I'm going to add a glue dot, which came in the package as well, and I'm just going to pull back the backing and place that glue dot right on the body of the butterfly before sticking it on the balloon. There are a lot of different patterns you could apply your butterflies to the balloon garland, but I wanted my butterflies to look like they were going in a cascade up the balloon garland. So I'm going to create a line of butterflies starting at the base of the garland and swooping out towards the outside of the garland and up towards the top. And I placed all of my large butterflies first and then filled in the gaps between them with the smaller butterflies. And this gave me a beautiful cascade of butterflies across the entire design. I wrapped up this setup by placing the giant butterfly wings right against the cake stand, so all three elements blend together into this beautiful setup. If you enjoyed this project, you should check out this video next.